This short video is part of the process optimization use case series, where we will focus on different techniques to identify process inefficiencies, non-conforming activities, and improvement opportunities. What makes process mining a great tool to report on change management processes is that it doesn't just report on information currently contained in the change record. Process mining can look historically and analyze the values that were previously there but were later updated. In this use case, we will focus on a situation where calculated risk of a change was recalculated and downgraded, potentially causing that change not to be taken as seriously during the approval process. Right now, what we're looking at is the map of the process that includes risk calculations. You could see that right away here, looking at only 60% of the connections, we can see that there's some discrepancy in the number of change requests that were at some point identified with different risk levels. And right here you see where those changes ended up. So for example, 41 changes at some point were classified as moderate risk, but only 33 actually ended up being a moderate risk change when the change was completed. The same for high, we see here 18 and 13, low 35 and 29. If we go ahead and increase the granularity to 100%, we actually begin to see how some of these changes happened. So for example, here we have a recalculated value from low to moderate. 4 changes went through this transition. And what we want to focus on is some of the changes that actually were calculated to be high, and you can see some of them were downgraded to be moderate, 3 of them, and 2 of them were downgraded to be low. We also are able to use a finding definition right here. We can see that risk downgraded from high to moderate or low, and 5 records, 3 and 2, like we saw on the other screen, were involved in that recalculation. So here we want to see not just the fact that this recalculation did happen, but we also want to see how this affects everything else around the change. And the most important thing that we want to look at is how would that affect the fact that a change could potentially be not successful. So in order to do that, we want to look at this map, but apply some conditions to this map that would only narrow it down to changes that were not successful. Now, for this scenario, the most reliable way to do that, and it is the most reliable way in many situations, is to go ahead and look at all of the changes that have caused at least one incident. So we want to apply a condition where we're going to say there's at least one record, and that record exists in the incident caused by change related list. So I'm going to apply this condition. And now what we're looking at is a subset of all of my change requests. You can see that I was dealing with 75 change requests in this map. Only 10 of them actually caused incidents. And here what we could see is, if you remember, there were 33 changes that ended up being completed with moderate calculations. Now, only 6 of them, so technically less than 20%, ended up failing. Now, when we look at the low risk changes, we could see that 2 out of 35, which is a very low percentage, that ended up not being successful and causing incidents. Technically, same is somewhat true with high, and we know that high risk changes have inherently higher risk of causing additional issues or outages. But now, if we look at changes that were used to be high and were recalculated, we can see here that 4 out of 5, so 3 recalculated from high to moderate, downgraded that way, and 1 downgraded from high to low. So 4 out of 5 changes, 80% of changes that were downgraded from a high risk were actually there when we looked at specifically changes that ended up causing incident. This indicates a very high percentage, and this is something that potentially could be looked at and examined. And the way that could be done is you could look at this transition. So for instance, if we wanted to see, okay, what are all the changes that were downgraded from high to moderate? And we can see here that these three changes have a view records button available here. And by clicking this, we can get additional details, additional information, and potential look at the groups, potential look at the users, potential look at some of the reasons why this happened. Thank you very much for watching this video, and hopefully this helps with uncovering some of the process anomalies in your organization.